So according to President Trump, it is no more Mr. Nice Guy when it comes to Iran. It was Mr. Nice Guy before, sir. I want much less Mr. Nice Guy. Oh, and Louisiana v. Callais is out, a 6-3 decision. Leftists are going to be angry, and I will admit I'm a touch confused. William Jacobson will be with us, Cornell law professor, to discuss it. I'm Tony Katz. The show is Tony Katz Today. Let's begin. No more Mr. Nice Guy. That's what President Trump put out there into the world. He wants you to know he ain't messing around. He's got the post on the Truth Social, and if you don't believe that he's there holding it, what looks like an AR-15, but I don't know what it's supposed to be, and there are explosions going on all around him, and he says, no more Mr. Nice Guy, while he's wearing sunglasses. Well, that's a call to seriousness. I'm just saying, I don't want posts. I want the IRGC dead. I want free Persians, and I want to not think about the Middle East for 5 freaking minutes. I don't need the social media silliness. But we should be clear, there's nobody to negotiate with. Whoever we thought we were negotiating with, it doesn't matter. They were nobody. How do we know that they're nobody? They can't keep the IRGC in line. They're nobody. Tony Katz today. An absolute pleasure to be with you guys. By the way, Louisiana v. Callais is out, 6-3 decision, putting an end to racial gerrymandering, but not putting an end to the Voter Rights Act, specifically to Section 2, which is going to have a lot of people saying, well, then what did they actually do? They seem to have narrowed the scope on the idea of what can constitute a district. But they seem to have also said in this 6-3 decision that if your plan is to build a district based on racial lines, it's not somehow okay if you're black. Because if you drew districts that were all in favor of and all encompassing people who are white, you'd say that's racism. Correct. And the Voting Rights Act does not supersede the Constitution. It's very interesting. It's going to lead to a lot of questions, including what happens in this election. This election right here. What happens? I'm going to get to all of it. William Jacobson, Cornell law professor, is going to be with us. And of course, Alex Soros writing, the Supreme Court just made it easier to draw minority voters out of power. That's what today's ruling does. Just remember, Alex Soros is somebody you pay attention to because his dad has all the money and Lord only knows where he got it from. Not worried about him at all. Not worried about his favoring bigotry at all. The idea that you could draw a district based on racial lines, disgusting, despicable. But we will get into that. Let's go back to Iran. And let's go back to, of course, the big decision yesterday, which was the UAE leaving OPEC. We discussed it with Dr. Matt Will, economist at the University of Indianapolis. This is something they'd want to do for a while. They want to take advantage of opportunities of high oil prices as they can. They figure there's destabilization happening. And if Saudi Arabia was keeping them from production, Saudi Arabia may still lower its production to keep oil prices up. But what they're saying is they've got to diversify. They need the money now. They want to make the changes now. What it also says is that the old guard thought processes and theories no longer work. They're no longer a play. Certainly, one of the old guard thought processes and theories was the idea that you can't deal with the Iranians. You can't go after the Iranians. You can't hit the Iranians. Well, they'll do this and they'll do that and they'll do the other. Well, one of the things we knew they would do is try and choke off the Strait of Hormuz. And oil prices have felt it. As I speak to you right now, middle of the day, you have got West Texas crude at $106 a barrel, and you've got Brent crude at $119 a barrel. It's high, kittens. It's absolutely high. Take out a couple of the areas of the IRGC and see some tankers go. That drops back down to 93, then 87, then 78. I don't think it gets back into the 60s. I do think you get back into the high 70s. And then people go, okay. The biggest problem is that President Trump never sold the story. He needed to sell the story. What is it that we're doing, and why is it that we're doing it, and what will happen because we do it? What will be the end result, the net result, the better for us? He should have done a better job at selling it, and he didn't, and we've discussed this before. But I'm not going to listen to all the leftists gnashing their teeth. Look how high oil prices are. They were high under Joe Biden, and they did not care. So let's focus on what President Trump means by no more Mr. Nice Guy. First, it is very clear that he isn't accepting the deal that the Iranians put forth. The Iranians, meaning the regime or whatever's left of it, the IRGC, whoever they were talking to, well, listen, we'll allow the strait to be open, but you allow our ports to be open, and we won't talk about nuclear weapons. Sound good? Huh? That's not a deal. They can't have a nuclear weapon. The president has been very, very clear. We are not going to allow them to have a nuclear weapon. We're not going to engage with this. It's just a no. So, of course, it was a non-starter to begin with. But the bluster is not necessary. They already know. You didn't show up to the negotiation in Pakistan. Well, the second round of negotiations, and they didn't want to do it in the first. Remember, their entire life is based around pretending to be tough guys at a negotiating table. Oh, they're such tough negotiators, which is why you cannot negotiate with them. They are not the same as you. They aren't the same culturally. They aren't the same spiritually. You have no commonality with Islamists. They cannot be negotiated with. So why would you try? Even if they said yes, they're lying. Their entire history proves it. So why would you negotiate? Well, Tony, you take a shot. All right, you took the shot. Can we be done with the shot now? Tony, why are you such a warmonger? No, I'm a realist, and I would like for this to end. It's not that I think it's gone on too long. It's that I think it is endable. Now, part of how it can end is exactly what we're doing right now. They get no money. We've choked off the oil supply. They can't ship out their oil. Their storage is full. They're relying on old, dilapidated tankers and hulls in order to hold the oil, but it can't last. They're going to have to burn some of the oil off, or they're quite literally going to dump it into the Gulf, or they have to shut down the well. When you shut down a well, it doesn't necessarily come back on. There are massive bits of pressurization going on. Water can seep into the well, and then it's whoop, over. That is done. Bankrupt the whole country. But really what you're talking about is bankrupting the IRGC, keeping the money from them, and then they have to make a decision. Do they stay and fight because they know they're going to get hunted down by the people when the people feel that they have a moment? Or do you run because they know they're going to get hunted down if the people feel that they have a moment? Do you risk what the Israelis can do? Because everybody in the IRGC, it doesn't matter what they say. They know that the Israelis can find them, hunt them down, and kill them, and never once get out of a Barca lounger. The Israelis can be eating brisket and taking out the IRGC members at the same time. And every member of the IRGC, and now every member around the globe, knows it. When the ceasefire went into effect, they came out of hiding. Everyone knows where everyone is. Do they want to risk this? Well, I believe that they have no choice. They have zero choice. They must risk it. They are not going to simply run, and there certainly is going to be no deal that can be made that can be trusted. The president has to know this too. Now, I was happy to see that Pete Hegseth was in front of Congress today talking about defense budgets. And I will admit to you that I appreciate this kind of talk very, very, very much.
Incredible successes of our military, achieved in a matter of weeks. President Trump, unlike other presidents, has had the courage to ensure Iran never gets a nuclear weapon, and he's ironclad in that. We have the best negotiator in the world driving that deal. The biggest challenge, the biggest adversary we face at this point are the reckless, feckless, and defeatist words of congressional Democrats and some Republicans 2 months in, I remind you, 2 months in to a conflict. Lest I remind you, and my generation understands how long we were in Iraq, how long we were in Afghanistan, how long we were in Vietnam. 2 months in on an existential fight for the safety of the American people, Iran cannot have a nuclear bomb. We are proud of this undertaking. I am proud that President Trump has had the courage to do it, and I look forward to sharing more about what our troops have accomplished.
He's right. I love it. I love every last bit of it. The people who are screaming, this is a forever war, were fools at the start, and they are fools now. They're people who watch Tucker Carlson and say, you know, he's got a point. Tucker used to make points. Now Tucker's just falling apart. It's not a forever war. It's far from a forever war. But in order, in my view, to ensure that, Secretary Hegseth, the IRGC has to be ended because no negotiation is going to work. We did discuss with Major Lyons that it is certainly possible that the ceasefire worked to our advantage because we were able to restockpile and reconstitute and get certain ships in certain places and be ready for what comes next. The Iranians, they had nothing to reconstitute. They have nothing left. You've been hearing about missile strikes from them? No, they don't have any. Drone strikes? Maybe they're just keeping their powder dry. But the negotiation part is over. And I think this conversation from President Trump today, where he also stated that he believes that Iran is collapsing, is not a message to the Iranians, but to everybody else. The next hit is coming. And the next hit has to be the end of the IRGC. It's the only way this ends. I'm Tony Katz, and this is Tony Katz Today. Welcome back, everybody. Tony Katz. Good to be with you. Let me tell you about my Johnny Bravo style there, Chris. It isn't ever intentional. I don't know what it is about this haircut. Bloop. It's full pompadour Johnny Bravo. It is. If I could dance like him, then again, I'd dance like a cartoon. I don't know. I don't know if it's, I think it is equally poofy right there. Just is what it is. Is what it is. My light's not on. Check that out. Hold a second. Oh gosh, look at that. Boom. Wait for it. Wait for it. Huh? Anyway. So to Israeli and US intelligence. So what if I said to you, it's not that their techniques got better, it's just a lot easier to collect the intelligence because there's so many less people to collect the intelligence on. Whatever systems the Iranians may have had for trying to cloak themselves, hide themselves, which didn't work anyway, now those systems don't exist at all. So any little bits of help it was getting, there is no help, and there's less people you actually have to surveil. So, yeah, I agree with you, just for a bit of a different reason. Anyway, very interesting 1-2 punch about China. And where do I have this on? South Korea. Just a story of commies. Just a story of no good commie pinkos. Producer Landon. Credentials for the Indy 500 are now available. Did you really? Oh man, I have to be downtown on Friday, so I might pick them up. I gotta be downtown, and then I'll head out, and then I'll head up. Oh yes, some good 500 credentials. Yeah, producer Landon's gonna be out there for a full week over the next month, so he'll be in and out, guys. This is his Christmas all month long. If the Democrats don't make rebalancing and expanding the Supreme Court a top priority for whenever they next get into power, then I don't know what to say anymore. The GOP-packed court is the biggest block on progress in this country and has been for a while. Oh, Mehdi Hassan, you bigot. You don't like a good joke either. Well, this is the Supreme Court saying that you can't use racism to create racial districts. This is a good thing. Of course you're upset, but the left is absolutely going to pack the court if the left gets control. Tony Katz today. Good to be with you. This is all about Louisiana v. Callais. This decision has ramifications, and William Jacobson, Cornell law professor, legalinsurrection.com, he will be with us in a little bit. I'm actually sending him the invite right now. And if you watch on the live stream, you will see him. Otherwise, you will hear him. Just go to YouTube, look for Tony Katz, and subscribe. A little bit of data for you on the failures of communism. It's a very interesting bit of graph. This was put forth by a guy by the name of Dr. Eli David. I think it's David. I'm not super familiar with him, but I find the numbers quite interesting. The data is interesting. It's the GDP per capita of North Korea versus South Korea. And it is exactly what you would think that it is. That when you take a look at North Korea and South Korea, post the Korean War, where North Korea said everything about us, absolutely everything, is all about the communism. And South Korea said, you know what? We should engage in some trade. The numbers are staggering. That between 1960, right, post-Korean War, and 2022, the GDP, the gross domestic product per capita, per person, in South Korea went from about $2,000 a year to $42,000 a year. And in North Korea, it went from about $2,000, $3,000 a year to $2,000 a year in 2022. It's data, kitten. It's just what we know to be true. But sometimes you get to see the full and complete story. That's great. There's also great data out there from Bachasanger, which I'm going to go over and I hope to bring to you tomorrow, that all this talk that political violence comes from the political right. The left lies again. They lie constantly and consistently. No, it comes from the political left. It does not come from the political right. It comes from the political left. Now, this bit of data coincides with another very, very interesting piece. And it shows the Chinese real estate market. And you say to me, Tony, why does this matter? 2 years ago, we were discussing groups like Countrywide, Country Garden, and Countrywide was a bank here, was a mortgage company that was giving mortgages to people like Chris Dodd. Country Garden and Evergrande. These were real estate companies in China that were doing insane levels of investment, building these ghost cities that no one ever lived in, all this kind of stuff. And what the data shows us is that the entirety of the real estate market in China has fallen away. Every gain from the last 20 years is gone. Now, we already knew that Evergrande and Country Garden were never going to survive. These were propped up by the Communist Chinese Party, and they were building all these things to create jobs for people. That's all they were. They were nothing more than jobs programs. Nobody lived in them. That's why they call them ghost cities. We're talking about skyscrapers that have no people. And then they did something else, not learning from the Japanese. They built out infrastructure project after infrastructure project. And in doing so, they spent billions of dollars. They created short-term jobs. They took cities, towns, where the average GDP is 5,000 US dollars, and the town has 4 or 5 airports. Houston only has 2, 4 or 5 airports. They went on an infrastructure spree. Well, Japan did this in the early 80s as they were booming. And what happened? 3 decades of stagflation. Because it's untenable. You need other investments. You need actual growth. You need to manage it properly, and the Chinese haven't. And these companies were never going to be successful. We discussed then, if there are people invested in pension funds and Chinese real estate, they're insane. So you take this in this real estate cratering. You take already what we know about their poor economy and the recession that they're in and the inflation and what will be the stagflation based on the Japan model. And then you add to that the population explosion where they're losing population because they aren't replacing the population. The firing gun has sounded. It's bad things for China and all communists. I'm Tony Katz. By the way, we should be clear that bad things for communists are good things for the rest of us. Because all commies, what? Suck. They're all terrible. They're awful. They're communists. No decent person is a communist. No communist could be a decent person. These are nothing more than all of the facts. I apologize for nothing. So we're waiting on William Jacobson of legalinsurrection.com. It turns out the one-child policy Walker one did not work out. And if you want to do, we've talked about this before, so forgive me if I'm repeating myself. If you want to do some interesting math, China has had the one-child policy since Mao, right? So now ask yourself, if they quite literally killed the girls, if they had the one-child policy, how is it remotely possible? How is it remotely possible that China has more people than India? Just do math. Think about it for a moment. How is it remotely possible that China has more people than India? I put forth to you that it doesn't. So the conversation about the population bomb is that you have not replaced the generations that you have. You have new generations not having children at all. And therefore, the 1.3 billion people, 1.4 billion people that China has is going to, the population is going to flat out atrophy. They simply can't create more Chinese people. It's not the way it works. You would need decades of repopulation. And that's not in the cards. The population is going to crumble, population bomb. So that has been the story, that'll take place over the next 100 years. There's a different argument to be made. And that is, why would anybody believe the Chinese anyway? How could you ever believe a number that they put out? You can't believe them on the economy. You can't believe them on the value of the yuan. They change that and manipulate that here, there, and everywhere. I put forth to you that I am amongst the group of people that believes that the population bomb of China has already begun, and they're already losing population. Were losing population, and that's why they went about China 2025, Belt and Road Initiative, etc. They are trying aggressively to maintain control because they know the future does not look good for them. Now, you know who looks good? You know who looks good? That's William Jacobson, Cornell law professor. Look at him. My God, you're a handsome man. Handsome man. So listen, I've got your story right here from Legal Insurrection. I do want to go over just a little bit of Southern Poverty Law Center stuff with you. Can we do that?
Sure.
Right? Because that story broke and seems to have disappeared, and it shouldn't. But here's the story from Legal Insurrection about Louisiana v. Callais, which I'm here to tell you, the decision confuses me. Never mind the 6-3, which I could have predicted. But it says no racial gerrymandering, but keeps the Voting Rights Act and Section 2 in place. I'm going to ask you about this. Don't tell us now. Save it for the air. That's a tease, my dear friends on the live stream. By the way, go to Legal Insurrection and be supportive, because William Jacobson, he needs some more flannels. If we do not have William Jacobson, see ya flannels. There's some great reporting going on right there, and some good people. Kimberly Kay and Mary Chastain, terrific people. So I'll bring you in just a second, sir. Louisiana v. Callais, 6-3 decision from the Supreme Court. This is about racial gerrymandering, where the state of Louisiana said we need to create a second black congressional district. And once you hear that, you say, whoa. You can create a congressional district based on race? Well, that's the argument. And the belief is that the Voting Rights Act would allow for this. So the Supreme Court heard this case and then said, wait a second, come back and argue this case again, but bring up the 14th and 15th Amendment. And then let's discuss if this makes any sense at all. William Jacobson joins me right now, Cornell law professor. He is the mind behind legalinsurrection.com. We're going to get to this in a second. But before we do, you have been following through some of your work like equalprotect.org, the case involving the Southern Poverty Law Center and how they were taking money from donors ostensibly, allegedly, to fight white supremacy. And then they were funding the white supremacists so that they could claim, look at the fight we have to have. And they created the entire ruse of Unite the Right in Charlottesville and all the rest. Yet we have seen that even though there are indictments, the story has fallen by the wayside. Where are we right now with the Southern Poverty Law Center and this case, and what have you learned?
Well, the Southern Poverty Law Center is accused by the government of defrauding donors by misrepresenting what the funding was going towards, but more particularly specific criminal acts in the course of that: bank fraud, wire fraud, other things. So it is not, as some are portraying it, as just whether they misuse donor funds. It's beyond that. In the course of misusing donor funds, they also allegedly committed other crimes. That has fallen by the wayside because, in part, the news cycle is 6 hours nowadays, and other things intervene. But in part, the media is running, defense for the Southern Poverty Law Center. The Law Center just filed a motion in court to try to prevent the government from making prejudicial public statements. They're alleging that Todd Blanche made false statements at a press conference that could prejudice them as to whether they cooperated with the government. They're seeking the grand jury transcript, because if those comments were made to the grand jury and they were false, they're going to challenge the indictment. So Southern Poverty Law Center is going to do scorched earth defense here, and they have to, because if they're convicted here, they're probably out of business because their licenses will be pulled at a lot of states. And that's really the issue, which is, what did they do? I think it's not so much that they created the Unite the Right rally, the so-called Charlottesville Tiki Torch, but they contributed to one of the organizers. They supervised that organizer's work to organize. And then, of course, they cashed in on it. So that's really what it is. And I've been covering for 15 years the fact that their promotional and fundraising activities were highly suspicious to me. I think, and they could reasonably be described as a scam fundraising. They would inflate their numbers. I had two specific examples in Rhode Island where they claimed once there was a Klan group and once there's a neo-Nazi group, which didn't appear from my investigation, because I'm from Rhode Island, to have any on the ground, effort. I mean, maybe there was a website someplace, maybe, who knows, but there weren't really functioning on the ground Klan and
right.
neo-Nazi groups in Rhode Island as their map claimed. So very suspicious organization, engaged in highly questionable fundraising tactics. None of that is really at issue in the indictment, but it's background. It's relevant background. And the indictment is detailed, 14 pages, very specific. It's not generalities. And so that's where it is. And the media has moved on from it.
We certainly have not. And I will tell you that if you're funding an organization that has been involved in white supremacy, I say that you organized the white supremacist rally, and I'm not going to be deterred from that. Talking to William Jacobson, Cornell law professor, legalinsurrection.com. Now let's get to it. This is the story. The 6-3 decision. You have the story at legalinsurrection.com. It's a great write-up about racial gerrymandering and how it cannot be used. So this here is the map of Louisiana. And anybody who catches the video and sees the live stream will see this ribbon of pink in the middle of the state, extending a far distance of the state, like if you had a ribbon of chocolate in your vanilla ice cream. That's a district that was drawn because that would make the maps fair, because they needed a second black district. Walk me through what Louisiana said. Walk me through how you take the 6-3 decision that was written by Samuel Alito, the decision of the court.
Yeah, it was 6-3 decision, the usual dissenters. I'm a little disappointed we didn't get a Ketanji Brown Jackson solo dissent, because that would have been off the charts. Okay,
right.
It was Elena Kagan wrote it, and she's big mad. Okay, she's big mad at this decision, but it wasn't quite KBJ level of invective. But the majority, Alito, joined by Thomas, who wrote a separate concurring opinion, the majority said that it's not so much that the voting, that you can't have take race into account in drawing districts, but it's extraordinarily narrow scope. You have to be really remedying prior intentional racial discrimination. And they found that wasn't the case here. That the case here is Louisiana, out of fear of a potential court decision, drew a map to create a majority minority or majority Black district, not to remedy past discrimination, but because they thought it was required by the Voting Rights Act. And basically what Alito said, you're not required to create these racial districts under the Voting Rights Act. He didn't, and this is super important, he didn't say that the Voting Rights Act can't be a justification for using race. He just said it's extraordinary and it didn't apply here. And the reason that's super important is there are other states, several other states, where the maps were drawn in order to create majority minority districts. I think North Carolina, maybe Alabama, 2 or 3 other states. And so what this will allow those plaintiffs, those Republican plaintiffs, to go into court and say, under this decision, these districts were also improperly drawn because they were drawn to limit white participation. And therefore, since it was intentional and clear racial discrimination in drawing districts under this Supreme Court decision still is actionable, you need to redraw the districts and throw out those maps in several other states.
Let me
That
stop
would give Republicans an advantage.
Let me stop you for a minute, because this idea of intentional throws me for a loop and maybe others for a loop. How is that determined? You're right. In Louisiana, I get it. They said the words.
Yes.
But in the main, how is it determined?
Oh, well, see what people said. See what the legislature said when they drew the maps. See what the commission said when they drew the maps. In many of these states, the explicit reason for drawing the maps the way they did was to create racially gerrymandered districts. So it's not that hard. The Democrat, when these have been drawn, they're generally not shy about it. They haven't been shy in the past. I don't think we need to, read tea leaves or anything like that.
But I will say that when you now see how other things are moved, right? Other districts are created, how maps are the current maps that we have. These states that you're discussing here, and there's a big talk about how this can really change the balance of the House for Republicans for a long time to come. They're going to be able to have to prove that case. Is there a new burden of proof that exists on the idea of whether or not this was done for racial reasons?
I don't know if there's a new burden of proof, but I think what Alito said is that it has to be clear racial motivation, racial discrimination. And it can't be discerned just from computer models of districts. It can't be discerned just from the impact that it might have. You would have to have clear intent to discriminate. And in many of the states, that is clear. And it was clear in Louisiana. Louisiana specifically created the snake-like district explicitly because they wanted to create a majority Black district. So I don't think it's going to be that complicated. The wild card here, and it's probably too late in the season, is the Supreme Court previously declined to hear, didn't rule on it, but declined to hear challenges to the California maps. The California maps give, I think it's 5, 6, 7 additional seats to, I might be off on that number, but it's of that magnitude, to Democrats. And those have been challenged based on the use of race in drawing the districts. And the court in February declined to hear it, okay? But I believe this opinion could allow the plaintiffs there to go back to the lower court and seek a new ruling. The problem is the Supreme Court looks disfavorably on challenges to districts that come so close to an election that it might disrupt the election process.
And this is a whole new thing. Talking to William Jacobson, Cornell law professor, legalinsurrection.com. Governor Tate Reeves of Mississippi has already said, I'm going to call the special session. He did it 5 days before the decision came out. We're doing this. Once Callais gets answered, we're doing this. How in the world, if President Trump has to pay back the tariffs the minute the court rules that the tariffs are unconstitutional based on the utilization of the IEEPA, how is it possible that anybody can go forward with an election? As far as I could tell, you have to delay the elections because the Supreme Court has to be listened to. This is what the left likes to say about everything. How is it not the case here?
Well, I don't think it's going to be a problem because we're at the end of April. And there are allegations that Kagan and the dissenters were sitting on their dissent to push this off. That's the allegation. And according to Molly Hemingway's book, wouldn't be the first time Kagan did that. Okay. She says she did that in the abortion cases, in the abortion case. So it's probably not too late for the states where they've already gone through the process. California, though, you would have to go back to the 3-panel district that ruled previously. You'd have to get a ruling from that panel. You'd have to redraw the maps, which could be contentious. And California is obviously a lot more complicated a map because of the number of districts than Mississippi would be. So I think in the 3, 4, 5 states where this has already been teed up, they could get it done in time. California, it's probably too late, even if a challenge were successful.
Let us riot. William Jacobson, the whole write-up is there at legalinsurrection.com. I appreciate you taking the time so quickly to be with us. More to get to. I am Tony Katz, and this is Tony Katz Today. This the regular process. Make sense? Okay. You're cool with it. Okay. Good. That was me talking to producer Landon right there. We got to keep him on the straight and narrow. Yeah, is that map from, check out that map from Louisiana. Look at that right there. That's a district. By the way, this stretch, 250 miles. As I know it, 250 miles. That's certifiable. So, oh, good Lord. Good Lord, indeed. All right. We're going to get into some agriculture stuff in the next hour. There was a report about bankruptcies of farms. And the rationale about the bankruptcies was fertilizer costs. The problem is the fertilizer costs going up is because of the war in Iran, but these bankruptcies were 2025. So what the heck is going on? What's actually happening with our farms, with the food that we eat? I think that is something worthy of trying to understand. Man, the left is so angry about the Supreme Court decision. And I want to say for the record, I want them to go all the way. I want to pull Section 2. It's going to always be utilized for bigotry. If you draw a district because the people in it all look the same or sound the same or have the same religion, that's bigotry. I wouldn't allow a Sharia district. No, that's not how you draw a district. And yet the left is totally fine. When they want to do this, they believe they can do anything they want. Man, people are losing their minds. A lot of angry. Well, I mean, to be irrational is kind of what they do. But it's when they don't get control. You know what? I'll dig into that, producer Landon, right now. Here we go. So if you follow social media, which I don't advise, Tony Katz, that is me, Tony Katz today. Follow me on Twitter X at Tony Katz, Instagram, Tony Katz, Facebook, Tony Katz, radio. Just don't follow me around when I'm driving. It's weird. It's creepy. Social media is broken because of this Louisiana v. Callais decision, the 6-3 decision from the Supreme Court on racial gerrymandering. We have to pack the courts. We have to redistrict Illinois. We have to redistrict Democrat states. So no Republican is here. They can't. They are out of their heads. And so producer Landon said to me, well, it's not, is it uncommon for the left to lose their mind over a decision? Understand what the left is upset about. And you already know the answer. So for anybody who doesn't, I'm talking to them because you already know the answer. The left isn't upset about the decision. The left is upset about what? The loss of control. Every single reaction from the left is not based on the constitutionality or lack thereof. It is based on whether or not they have lost power or they have obtained power. And in this situation, they feel they have lost power. And that is why the reaction is so over the top, nonsensical, nutty, fakakta crazy, as my grandmother would say. Ethel, rest her soul. I don't know if she definitely said fakakta. Definitely said that. They believe that they could draw a district any way they want, and you aren't allowed to draw a district at all. Now they have been told they can't draw a district any way they want. And that means that the court is unacceptable. It's a conservative packed court. Now we have to pack the court. We need odd number, 41, nope, make it more, 43 Supreme Court justices, and all of them have to be card-carrying members of the Democratic Socialists of America. All of them have to have a Barack Obama tattoo on their left cheek. You mean so people could see it? Not that cheek. That's who they are. What you are seeing is the loss of power. And if you want to ensure the left never has the power to manipulate the way they want to, you better win the freaking midterms. You better keep Democrats out of the Senate so they don't get involved in the confirmation or lack thereof of justices. Do we not understand that everything leads us down one road? You have to vote. The Republicans aren't perfect. No crap. Now what? I'm Tony Katz. All right. The Fakakta newsletter or the Fakakta review? I would do a newsletter because honestly, I need more things. But I would do that. All right, here's the story, right? We are in a commercial break. So we're going to take the break right here. There is a really interesting story about Serena Williams. And I want to share it with you because there is a story here that's good. Meanwhile, you've got the King of England and you have Camilla Parker Bowles. They are in New York visiting the 9/11 memorial. And they're actually there right now, might be able to share some of that with you. So keep it here. We'll get into all of it. Hang loose. We'll be back in just a little bit. Welcome back, everybody. Tony Katz. Tony Katz today. Guys, thank you for being here. I appreciate it. I was going to try and bring in some of King Charles, sorry. No, it won't show. No, it's not showing. All right, can't do what I can't do, what I can't do. Now, can I? No, I cannot. So we'll get into the story about Serena. Yeah, we're going to go a little cultural. We'll go a little in depth here. I mean, I've got a ton of stuff I can share with you. There's a fair amount of madness in the world. We can start there. I don't mind. Like how, according to Lisa Kudrow, the writers of Friends shared sexual fantasies about Jennifer Aniston and Courtney Cox. Or, said another way, they were guys. Let's see. All right, now we're good. Sure. Came across a very interesting story about Serena Williams, who I don't know if I share any political connections with at all, right? I don't know if we agree about a single thing. We're talking about the tennis player. Because I've seen her have blow-ups on the court, and I'm like, I think she's way, way out of her head here. Screaming and yelling that this one isn't treating her right or that one isn't treating her right. I've seen her on the court be masterful at her skill. I've seen her be honest, saying that I am the best women's player in the world, but if I play the top-ranked man, I'm going to get beaten 6-0, 6-0. There's not even a question, so why are we asking? I appreciate honesty. So maybe I could say, all right, she's got things that I like and things I don't like, and you leave it at that. Which is, I think, where you would leave most people. Tony Katz today. An absolute pleasure to be with you guys. Find everything at TonyKatz.com. Live streaming, go to YouTube, go to Tony Katz and subscribe. This was a story over there on Outkick, Fox Sports. Serena Williams, it reads, sparks debate with post about disciplining her child. And what is the story? The story is that she put out a post, which I would warn her, never, ever, ever post. Posting can only get you ruined. What did the post say? Here's what the post said. It read that I told my daughter to go to bed. She did not, therefore she missed out on her sleepover. She cried, but what she did not know is I cried harder. I hate when she cries. Discipline sucks, but sometimes it's important. My gosh, ladies and gentlemen, the world can be saved. For everything political that we have to discuss, and there's a lot to discuss, this is more important. Don't get me wrong. You got to stop the nuclear threat of the Iranian Islamist regime. You have to stop creeping Sharia. You have to put an end to the fraud taking place in Minneapolis and other parts of the country. You have to put an end to the fraud that was the Biden administration. Did you or did you not hear the story? And you'll see it as it is posted on the show sheet over at TonyKatz.com a little bit later today. Biden officials, this is the headline. Biden officials used code word to hide loans to major abortion provider. Luke Rosiak with the reporting. So when they were talking about Planned Parenthood, The code word was Benghazi. Do you think I can make this up? There is no possibility of me making this up. I couldn't do it if I wanted to. The SBA officials dispersed and forgave loans to Planned Parenthood and its affiliates, even after the agency determined that the group is not a small business that would be eligible. And they substituted the words Planned Parenthood for Benghazi. Everyone associated with the Biden regime is a fraud, is an anti-American zealot, and there is undoubtedly a place in hell for them. No bad things should happen to them or befall them. I just want them to go to jail. They are despicable, despicable people, and yet they believe they can lecture to you, me, and we. You know, James Comey was indicted for the 76, the 86-47 thing. Look, getting the numbers wrong. 86 means to get rid of, 47 meaning the 47th president, and 86 can be seen as like in the bar parlance, right? It's no longer on the menu, or it could mean to kill. And there's James Comey saying, I came upon these shells, my wife found them, throwing your wife under the bus. But when I speak about the Biden administration, they think that they were pious, and clearly lots of friends in the media, because they think it's okay to still bring Andrew McCabe around.
Of course not. Of course not. They actually have real work to do. It boggles my mind that they're still able to find people inside the department and the FBI, for that matter, if we take the acting attorney general at his word, who would actually spend their time working on this thing. And, you know, to kind of
do they have any
underline
choice?
that
I mean,
point,
if they're ordered to do it, I guess.
Anderson, we all have choices at the end of the day. And I would say,
and you, Andrew McCabe, chose to lie to FBI agents who you were leading. That's you, kitten. And now you're going to lecture to us. These people are despicable. And when you see these things, it is infuriating. How is it possible that they get away with absolutely everything? Yet if you sneeze in public, you're going to get sued and probably thrown in jail. You do anything wrong, everybody is after you every single step of the way. They do something wrong. It's how in the world can you be looking at this? Why are you paying such attention? And it is frustrating. Massively, massively frustrating. There is the report from Real Clear Investigations that the declassified FBI, DOJ, Clinton Foundation documents reveal that the same Inspector General, Michael Atkinson, who relaxed the whistleblower rules and misled Congress regarding the Eric Charamella, Adam Schiff, right? Oh, we've got the information on Trump. That impeachment, he was involved in the 2016 decision to scuttle the Clinton Foundation investigation when he was a DOJ prosecutor. They are always engaged in the manipulation of the facts to attack you and to protect them. When does someone go to jail? And it is frustrating. And that is why it is important when you see something, utilize the word refreshing, utilize the word honest, hopeful. I don't really like hopeful. Promising. Something you can connect with. Some hope. Yeah, I'm going to use hope. Some hope that there is still an opportunity for the country. I think we should highlight it because there's a lot of negative out there and there's a lot of anger out there and there's a lot of frustration out there. And no, you're not wrong in feeling that way. I'm with you. We go back to Serena, who writes about her daughter. I don't know how old her daughter is. I told my daughter to go to bed. She did not. Therefore, she missed out on her sleepover. She cried, But what she did not know is I cried harder. I hate when she cries. Discipline sucks, but sometimes it's important. That is a very worthwhile statement because discipline does matter. And there have to be consequences to actions. And what we see constantly and consistently is no consequence to an action. And we see it from young children and we see it from adult children. No consequences to actions at all. They don't study for the test, they fail the test, so the parent goes in to yell at the teacher. You know that it happens. Kids running up and down the aisles of airplanes because some parent would rather watch a rerun of Sex and the City than keep their kid in their seat. Oh, they're just kids, they're rambunctious. Tell your kids to be rambunctious on their own damn time. We should start with a basic here. I'm responsible for my kid and you're responsible for your kid. Because if I'm responsible for your kid, man, your kid is going to be in for a world of what the heck just happened to me. I don't care about what's happening in your life. I care that you manage it. Now, if we know each other, I care about what's happening in your life. But as a matter of social contract, you keep that stuff to yourself and handle your business. Raise your children right with standards and with an understanding there are consequences for actions. It doesn't happen enough. This is consequences for actions. Now, you could argue, no, I would not have stopped the sleepover. I would have done this instead. Sure, feel free. But you will find people who are actually upset by this. Oh, you didn't have to do that to your kid. They're just a kid. I don't know how old the kid is. But the earlier a child knows that there's a consequence for an action, good. Good. Now, you could argue, well, the four-year-old, no, but the 6-year-old, yes, or the 6-year-old, maybe, and the 8-year-old, yes. You can do that. You're the parent. You get to decide. But here we are cheering the basics of discipline. Nobody hit anybody. There was no flogging. There was no psychological torture. It was you didn't follow the rules. You don't get the thing that you want because you didn't follow the rules. And that's the way it works. Who knew? I mean, you make the argument, who knew parenting would be so difficult? And the answer is all the parents. That's why your grandparents laugh at you when they're leaving after they've hopped the kid up on sugar and they leave the house like, sorry, not our kids. And they get into their convertible, which is spending your inheritance. And they're like, later, suckers. And they drive off, right? You go to visit their house. And next thing you know, there are 3 pineapples there on the front stoop. You're like, I don't think we should stay. I think we should go. We are definitely not leaving the kids here. And if we do, we're buying them new sheets. It's tough. It's anybody who has done it or is in the middle of it, this parenting nonsense is nonsense. This parenting crap is crap. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm not giving it up. It's tough. Is it worth it? Of course it's worth it. I think it's worth it. Part of it being worth it is the maintaining of the standard when it's not easy. Then, when they're young, not setting into them this idea of no consequence, allowing them to think that somehow they can get away with anything, allowing them to think that they're in charge. Allow me. Kids are in charge of nothing. You know the expression that kids should be seen and not heard? I only think they should be seen sometimes. I love my children. There is nothing, and I say this very, very personally, and you'll understand me, and I appreciate it. If the choice is between my kids stubbing their toe and you being massacred, sorry. I know you agree with what I'm saying there. I love my kids. I would do anything, quite literally anything. But I am not a believer that you live your life for your children. You live your life with your children. You raise them to be capable. You don't raise them to be your raison d'etre. You exist. You exist, and it matters. So the idea that you'll give up your whole life for the life of your kids, if I actually had to sacrifice my life, yes. But you're not winning any prizes if you're willing to sacrifice yourself in that way. And that's part of the importance of the discipline, is recognizing that you matter in the whole thing. And very often there are parents who don't believe this. And those are the parents who are most interested in being their kid's friend and not their parent. And what the Serena Williams post shows is that she isn't this her child's friend. She's the parent. And that's the difference. That's the everything. That's it. From the time my kids were young, but not too young, I explained to them that I am not their friend, I am their parent. It's a very, very different role. And sometimes it means I don't get to hang out and I don't get to know every story. And every now and then they slip and you realize there are stories that they haven't shared with you. And you're like, okay, I'm just glad they have stories. But I'm the one who had the kid, and I'm the one who accepts the responsibility. And the responsibility is being a parent. And being a parent is brutalizing. And I wouldn't give it up for a second. There are moments I'd give up. Oh, there are moments of real regret. And I'm not a man of many regrets. But I would say I have one for each of them. I could point to now in my head, and if I start going over it with you, I will fall to the floor and I will cry. And I'm not doing that because I have a reputation to uphold. It's a really good thing that Serena Williams did here. There's a difference between being a parent and being a friend, and being a parent is much tougher. And the value is much greater. And the stronger parents we have, the better off we're all going to be. Good work, Serena. Well played. This is Tony Katz Today. Welcome back. Should I play some more of Hegseth? Yeah, I think I shall. I think I will. There we go. We'll do that. And then we're going to get into this agriculture conversation. Let me do this. And then let's do that. Actually, we're going to do this right here. We'll do this. And we'll do this. All right. Let's see if I've done this properly. I would do this here. 30 seconds. Fantastic. Okay. I think I've got this right. I think. I don't know. I don't know. So Pete Hegseth is advocating for funding for the Department of Defense or Department of War, and he's getting into a fight with Congressman Progressive Ro Khanna.
Cost Americans in terms of their increased cost in gas and food over the next year because of the Iran war?
I would simply ask you what the cost is of an Iranian nuclear bomb.
I'm going to give you that opportunity.
I would simply ask you what you're playing gotcha questions
sir,
about
no, it's
domestic
not.
things. I'm not.
You're saying it's a gotcha question to ask what it's going to be in terms of the increased
Why
cost
won't
of
you
gas
answer what
and
it costs to prevent Iran from getting a nuclear bomb?
I give you that, sir. But let me.
What would it cost? What would you pay to ensure Iran doesn't get a nuclear bomb? What would you pay?
I reclaim my time. Do you not know? You had no one do the analysis of what the increased cost of gas and food on the American people are going to be?
What is the cost of Iran holding that straight at issue with nuclear weapons?
It's $631 billion, which means it's an increase of $5,000 a year for American households. Now, let me give you this point. You're saying that your operation is preventing a nuclear Iran. Will you acknowledge that there is an economic cost to the American people for doing what you believe is necessary to make Iran denuclear? Will you acknowledge the economic cost?
We have an incredible economic team that's managing this better than what the previous administration did to our economy.
It's a weird moment where you can acknowledge the cost and then acknowledge it's more than just the cost. But if you're Ro Khanna, you can't even acknowledge the fact that they are nuclear, working their way towards nuclear, I should say, and that it is a problem. Tony Katz today. Good to be with you. Now, this is happening while the Supreme Court is hearing arguments regarding the removal of temporary protected status for Haitian migrants. The attorneys are saying that Trump wants to end this because these people aren't white. And Samuel Alito is taking him to task. I'll share this with you in a little bit. Should there be temporary protected status for Syrians and Greeks and Southern Italians? I mean, you think these people are all white? But of course, they only make the arguments that they make, the bigoted, nonsensical arguments. There is a cost to war. Correct. There is a cost to war. This is very, very, very true. But there's also a cost to not going to war. There's a cost. If you're not going to put that into the calculation, you're not a serious person. No seriousness whatsoever. What is going on with the farms? And why are the farms going bankrupt? We'll have that story coming up. Keep it here. This is Tony Katz Today. All right. All righty. All right, perfection. Oh, the shooter there at the White House Correspondents' Dinner, he took selfies of himself with every single weapon. He was loaded for bear. He knew exactly what he was doing. He didn't care. He knew exactly what he was doing, what he wanted to do, and you will see more of it. It's just coming. You will see much more of it. Oil prices continue to climb. $107 now on the West Texas crude. That's up a little bit. Still the Brent crude at $119 a barrel. Let me make this phone call, and we'll get our guest going. You guys should be able to hear this.
Hello, this is Michael Langemeyer.
Michael Langemeyer, Tony Katz, how are you, sir?
Pretty good. How are you?
I'm doing well. I should let you know that we're live streaming right now, and there's an audience of people who can hear you. We're not on the radio show yet, so I just want a fair warning. I think is always a respectable thing to do. Appreciate you taking the time, sir.
No problem.
All right. So I have you right here as the director of the Center for Commercial Agriculture at Purdue University.
Yes.
Okay. And I believe it was Matt Hiblin, my executive producer, who shared with you the graphic that I saw that kind of puts all of this into question about what's going on with the farms.
Yes.
Appreciate that. It's weird because so much of what we've been hearing about is about the price of the fertilizer going up, and we're about a minute away from the radio show starting. So just a little banter right here.
Okay.
And we're hearing a lot about this, but it caught the eye because this is happening from last year. So very curious to hear what it is you think is going on and what it is that we should be looking out for. So we're about 15 seconds away from the radio show. So I'll start asking you questions. You'll be on, you'll be live. All be good and boiler up. I got you.
Okay.
We're good. All right. Perfect. It was a graphic that struck me from a source I didn't know called Hedgeye, an independent investing research and financial media company. Right? They're clear it's not investment advice. And me, I would never give you investment advice. Tony Katz, Tony Katz today. Good to be with you. But it was a story regarding the American Farm Bureau Federation and how they reported 315 Chapter 12 bankruptcy filings in 2025. That's up from 216. So it's another 100 bankruptcies from 2024. But what was interesting is that it talked about a headline, and the headline was about fertilizer costs. Well, we're hearing about fertilizer costs right now because of the war with Iran and those costs going up. But this happened last year. What is actually going on with fertilizer? What's going on with the family or corporate farm? And should we be concerned? Michael Langemeier joins me right now, the director of the Center for Commercial Agriculture at Purdue University, professor of agriculture economics at Purdue, focusing on farm financial performance, cost structures, and profitability. So you're the right guy, it turns out, sir, to speak with. So let's start with the data itself. Is that accurate that we have an increase in bankruptcies in family farms last year due to fertilizer costs?
The increase in bankruptcies is not directly related to fertilizer costs. What it is directly related to is the fact that we've had relatively low margins in crop agriculture for 2 years now, 24, 25, and we're heading into 26. That's another low margin year. And when you have a series of years in a row that are fairly low margins, the number of bankruptcies increases. And I want to go back to the 2014 to 2019 period to put this into context. There were 6 years in a row, 2014 all the way through 2019, that we had relatively low crop margins in the Corn Belt in Indiana. And in 2019, we had 599 bankruptcies. And so what we're seeing here is we're seeing that as margins continue to be tight, we're in the third year right now, the number of bankruptcies is increasing. In 2023, we had 139 bankruptcies. That went up to 216 in 2024, and now 315 in 25. If prices remain relatively low and costs relatively high this year, which is what we're expecting, we would expect the number of bankruptcies to increase again in 2026. It's not necessarily due to the fertilizer cost. The higher fertilizer costs have not helped matters, but it's due to low margins.
So let's discuss a little bit the difference between margins and markups. So everybody is following the economics. Walk me through that.
The margins are calculated basically by taking your gross revenue, what revenue do you get for selling your crop, government payments, any crop insurance, indemnity payments, and subtracting from that all the operating costs, including land costs, machinery costs, and labor costs. And so the margin is really a net return. This is the return we have left after we've subtracted all of our expenses.
And the difference between that and the markup is you bought it for this and you sold it for that. You're marking it up X number percent.
Yeah, in agriculture, we don't really talk about markups. We talk about the difference between the crop price and the break-even price. It's a similar idea, but that's kind of the lingo that we use. And even before the Iran conflict, where we pushed energy prices up and we pushed nitrogen prices up, we were looking at a very wide gap between corn price and break-even price. Corn price has been right around $4.25 per bushel, whereas the break-even price is closer to $5. And so we've been underwater. We were underwater even before the Iran conflict. What the Iran conflict did is it made the situation even worse. There's a bigger gap between corn price and the break-even price for corn.
Talking to Michael Langemeier of Purdue University, the director of the Center for Commercial Agriculture, focusing on farm financial performance, cost structures, profitability. Is this to say that the balance sheets of the family farm and even the corporate farm are in a precarious position across the board, or is this ag specific, crop specific?
the crop sector has much tighter net returns than the livestock sector. In fact, the livestock sector, particularly beef cow calf producers, really have pretty good times right now. They're having very strong net returns, whereas the crop producers are not. And so it really is more crop production, specific. And one of the things you asked about the balance sheet, as we continue to have these low net returns, like I said, we're in the third year right now. What happens is both the short side of the balance sheet, which is our current side of the balance sheet, gets tighter. So we have more difficulty paying our bills, repaying debt, and having money for owner withdrawals, things like that. But also the non-current portion, it tends to get a little tighter. And the non-current portion is where you talk about financial stress. If the non-current portion is relatively weak, usually this is younger operators and operators that do not own very much land, then those are the operators that are primarily in a precarious situation. If a farm owns quite a bit of the ground that they farm, even though things are not great, they have more of a cushion there because their non-current portion of the balance sheet looks stronger.
So now let's go back to the margin conversation. Is it that the cost of everything has gone up, including the labor on the farm? Or is it that you simply cannot raise the prices at the store anymore? People will not spend more, and they're being told, whether it's by the distributor, by the supermarket, whatever the case may be, nope, we'd rather just send it back. We'll let it rot. We simply won't sell it.
Well, when you talk about corn and soybeans, you're primarily talking about using the product for the feed industry,
Sure.
Ethanol in terms of corn, biodiesel in terms of soybeans, and so you're not necessarily talking about food prices. You're talking about prices that are driven by different fundamentals in food, the food demand, and so it's a global market. And last year we planted a lot of corn, and that's one of the reasons why the corn price is relatively weak right now, is because we did plant a lot of corn. Why did we plant a lot of corn last year? We were having trouble sending soybeans to China in 2025, and so producers shifted away from soybeans towards corn, making soybean prices also relatively weak. And so it's all driven by supply and demand fundamentals. And when you talk about markup, there really is no such. We don't use that word in production agriculture very often. Because you really don't have a lot of power over prices. You have very little power over prices. It depends on global demand, and so if global demand is not strong, or we have really tight supplies, you're going to have relatively low prices.
Talking to Michael Langemeyer of Purdue University, director of the Center for Commercial Agriculture. Just a quick tangent on soybeans. This is something that China buys a lot of. It is a world that is dependent on hogs for food supply, but China has been aggressive in not wanting to buy U.S. soybeans, working with South America to engage soybeans, setting up rail lines to be able to get them. Does the soybean farmer have a future with a Chinese market, or do they need to already be, or have they already been thinking about levels of diversification of the land?
I think the soybean market it does have a future. Definitely does have a future. I think the lack of soybean purchases to China was kind of a very period specific. And it seems like we're moving out of that, where they've actually made some agreement to buy more soybeans to bring us back to something that's a little bit more normal for us. Having said that, one of the worries about soybeans in the United States is how competitive are we compared to Brazil. Brazil's been increasing soybeans for a number of years here, at least 2 decades, and so they're becoming increasingly competitive. With us, and so that's always a concern. The way around that is just to try to stay as competitive as you possibly can, and hope that the world demand increases. And that's my theory is what's going to happen is as Brazil produces more soybeans, the world's going to need more soybeans, and so that's not necessarily a negative thing that they're producing soybeans, as long as their growth is relatively slow. That's the key thing to the world supply of soybeans, and it looks like it's going to be for the next few years. And so we need a growing pie in terms of as a supply, and we're going to be part of that. When you look at soybean production, 3 countries produce 80% of the world's soybeans. Brazil, U.S., and Argentina, and I don't see that changing anytime soon.
Before I let you go, Michael Langemeyer, director of the Center for Commercial Agriculture at Purdue University, you talked about the bankruptcies, how this conversation started, the increase in bankruptcies, the small margins, possibly seeing more. Is this something where there's a push from whether it's the American Farm Bureau Federation or other groups? Do they want Congress to get involved? Is there a bailout that is being asked for here? Is there a bailout that could even come here? I don't know if I'd call it necessarily
a bailout, but they're certainly making the push right now so that we have some money in the farm bill that's being negotiated on the Hill. I think that's the positioning that's currently going on. Maybe there'll be some money in that farm bill, for farm, some payments similar to the bridge payments that we saw that we saw in late February and early March this year.
Michael Langemeyer, director of the Center for Commercial Agriculture at Purdue University. I appreciate you taking the time to be with us today. Very, very much. More is coming up. I'm Tony Katz, and this is Tony Katz Today. Guys, welcome back. Tony Katz. The show is Tony Katz Today. Snacks will not be provided. I apologize. Yeah, I know that, like, I'm going to get some emails from some people like, why are you talking ag? It should be all politics, hard politics all the time. How we get fed is pretty hard politics, kids. The bankruptcies mean less farms. Sometimes it will mean that the farm is gobbled up by somebody else. Sometimes it'll mean less farms. In every single situation, it isn't a good thing. So it is worthy of discussion. Kevin Warsh has been advanced to be the next Fed chair. And then I've got the oral argument with Samuel Alito. It's going to be fun. Very, very fun. All right. The Senate has moved to advance Kevin Warsh as the next chair of the Federal Reserve. Tony Katz. Tony Katz today, guys, an absolute pleasure as always. The vote was 13 to 11. All Republicans in favor, all Democrats opposed. It's an important lesson for Republicans. Don't ever think, well, this person's good enough. Democrats will never, ever do it. They will never, ever, ever do it. It's all they are obstructionists on everything. So we are perfectly, perfectly clear. And then there's this. You've got the Supreme Court case being discussed right now, or I should say it was discussed a little bit earlier, regarding temporary protected status for Haitians and Syrians. And I opposed temporary protected status. I was there in Springfield, Ohio, and it seemed very obvious, you know, when they were like, they're eating the dogs, they're eating the cats. They weren't, they were eating the geese. That much happened. Terrible drivers causing accidents, absolutely. And so many Haitian migrants had moved in that renters or landlords said, sorry, you have to move out. I can make more money because it's government paid, and I can put 9 people in this house. You're out. Housing became a massive issue. Real stuff. And no one prepared Springfield, Ohio for this. And that's what had the people the most outraged. You didn't prepare us. And so we're like, what's going on? And now everybody, you know, casts us as racist. It's disgusting. And they were totally right about that. Whether they agreed with me or disagreed with me politically, they all made that point and they were accurate. How they have been portrayed or were portrayed at the time was really disgusting. They didn't deserve that. But when you looked at temporary protected status, it very much looked like it was a jobs program. That's what it was. It was a jobs program from beginning to end. Really, really messed up stuff. And so you have here Jeffrey Pipoli, who is the attorney for the Haitian nationals, making his case, and Samuel Alito saying, whoa, 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 whoa.
Isn't it the case that TPS was terminated for quite a list of countries? I can't seem to find the particular page of the transcript where the district court goes through them all. And yes, none of those is a Nordic country. And I don't like dividing up the people of the world arbitrarily into 3 racial groups. But you say they're all non-white, and that's the distinguishing characteristic.
That is the distinguishing characteristic that the district court held. But I would emphasize, Justice Alito, that
But do you think that if you put Syrians, Turks, Greeks, and other people who live around the Mediterranean in a lineup, do you think you could say those people are that all of them, are they all non-white?
I understand that Syrians, I think, may be classified as white for purposes of the State Department, or for under certain government programs. But again, I think race is, I think, you'd have to poll the public to know what they think the race of a Syrian is. I certainly think they're not white.
Poll the American people?
Well,
so do they think Syrians are white?
I wouldn't think that most would, Justice Alito.
Really?
I really don't.
How about Turks?
I honestly haven't considered what racial component I would sort Turks into.
How about Greeks?
I don't know the answer to that either.
How about Southern Italians?
Well, certainly 120 years ago, when we had our last wave of European immigration, Southern Italians were not considered white. So I think our concept of these things evolves over time.
How about Spaniards?
I think same answer. About 120 years ago, I don't think they were considered white.
You have a really large, you have a really broad definition of who's white and who's not white. As I said, I don't like dividing the people of the world into these groups.
But that's exactly what they need to do in order to win this case. Temporary protected status absolutely plays like a jobs program. But most importantly, it is an end around immigration policy. I don't know why Republicans would ever be in favor of such things. There's much more show to get to. Keep it here. It's Tony Katz today. I mean, there comes a moment where you can say, no, the purpose here is blank. And the purpose here is to allow certain people from certain countries into the country and staying into the country for certain reasons. Is that what we do? All of a sudden, everything gets very Animal Farm. All the animals are equal, but some are more equal than others. That's the argument. Am I the only person who thinks that argument is totally messed up? That argument, prima facie, right? That's the expression. That argument, at first face, at first appearance, is a bigoted argument. That's my take. Hold on. Why would you take blood pressure medication before listening to me? My dulcet tones are very soothing. That's what they are, right? Listening to this show is like getting a foot rub. By the way, if someone gave me a foot rub, I would go out of my mind and hit them with a stick. I am not anti-feet. Just no foot rubs. That's no. Just saying what is. Guys, I appreciate you. I'm glad that you were here. I'm back tomorrow at noon. The show continues over at WIBC.com. Be sure to go check that out and be a part of it. Can't thank you enough for being here. Don't forget to subscribe as well. So we have not been remiss at some uploading of some new videos over the last week or so. We'll get back to that right quick, so you will have everything, and we'll just load it all up. Load it all up. Sometimes you take a little bit of a break from the posting. Look, a little bit of that, a little bit of this, and then we'll get back to it. There it is. I appreciate you guys. I'll catch you tomorrow. You take care.